You're firing a man for a broken projector. The janitor's voice cut through the conference room like a gunshot. Victoria Sterling stopped mid-sentence. 14 executives forgot how to breathe. The IT director, who had been trembling under her assault, looked up in disbelief. No one had interrupted Victoria Sterling in 12 years. No one had dared. But Marcus Johnson, a black single father working his 5th day as a night janitor, stood in the doorway with his cleaning cart and spoke the words that would crack open a billion-dollar empire built on fear. He didn't know it yet, but neither did she. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. You're firing a man for a broken projector. The words left Marcus Johnson's mouth before his brain could stop them. Victoria Sterling's head snapped toward the doorway. Her eyes locked onto him with the precision of a weapon finding its target. Excuse me. Marcus stood frozen, one hand still gripping his cleaning cart. Every instinct screamed at him to apologize back, disappear. But the words were already in the air, and he couldn't take them back, so he didn't. I said you're firing a man for a broken projector. His voice came out steadier than he expected. The system failed. Not him. The silence that followed was absolute. 14 department heads sat motionless around the conference table, their faces frozen in expressions of pure horror. Robert Chen, the IT director, who had been Victoria's target moments before, stared at Marcus like he had just witnessed a man step in front of a moving train. Victoria rose from her chair slowly. The movement was deliberate, controlled, predatory. Who are you? Marcus Johnson, night janitorial staff. How long have you worked in my building, Mr. Johnson? 5 days. 5 days. She walked toward him, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. And in 5 days you've decided you understand my business better than I do. No, ma'am, I don't understand your business at all. Then why are you speaking? Marcus looked past her to Robert, still standing by the dead projector, still shaking, still waiting for the axe to fall. Because somebody had to. Victoria stopped 3 feet away from him. Up close, she was smaller than he expected, but her presence filled the room like a physical force. Somebody had to, she repeated. And you decided that somebody was the janitor who empties trash cans. I decided that somebody was the only person in this room who wasn't too scared to open his mouth. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Victoria's jaw tightened. Her voice came out like ice cracking. You have no idea who you're talking to. I know exactly who I'm talking to. Marcus held her gaze. I'm talking to someone who's about to destroy a man's career over a technical malfunction that he couldn't have prevented. He's the IT director. Preventing technical malfunctions is literally his job. And he's been here until midnight every night this week making sure everything worked. I know because I've been cleaning around him. Marcus gestured toward Robert. That man has done everything right. Sometimes systems fail anyway. That's not incompetence. That's reality. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that Marcus could see the fury burning behind her eyes. Reality, she said, is that I built a $4 billion company by refusing to accept excuses. Reality is that I signed the paychecks for everyone in this building, including yours. Reality is that I can end your employment with a single phone call, and no one in this city will hire you after I'm done. Then make the call. The words hung in the air between them. Victoria blinked. For just a fraction of a second, something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe? Or confusion, like she had thrown a punch and hit nothing but air. What did you say? I said make the call. Marcus's voice didn't waver. Fire me right now if that's what you need to do. But it won't change the fact that what you're doing to that man is wrong and everybody in this room knows it. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Victoria stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned back to the conference table. Meeting adjourned. Robert, you have until noon to fix the projector. She walked out without another word. The door slammed behind her with a sound like a verdict. Marcus pushed his cart toward the service elevator, his hands trembling for the first time. "Hey!" He turned. Robert Chen was jogging down the hallway after him. Robert stopped, catching his breath. "I don't know what to say. Nobody's ever done anything like that before." "I probably just got myself fired." "Probably." Robert laughed nervously. "But thank you. I mean it. I've been here 3 years, and that's the first time anyone has ever stood up to her." "Does she always treat people like that?" "Every day. Worse sometimes." Robert glanced back toward the conference room. Last month she fired a receptionist for pronouncing a client's name wrong. The month before that, she made an intern cry so hard the kid had to go to the hospital for a panic attack. Marcus shook his head. "How does anyone work here? The pay is good. The benefits are better." Robert shrugged. "And most of us have families, mortgages, reasons we can't just walk away. So we keep our heads down and hope we're not the next target. That's no way to live." "No, it's not." Robert extended his hand. "Robert Chen, I owe you one." Marcus shook it. "Marcus Johnson. And you don't owe me anything. I just said what needed saying." "Well, whatever happens next, I won't forget it." Robert headed back toward the conference room. Marcus watched him go, then stepped into the service elevator and pressed the button for the basement. The doors closed. Marcus leaned against the wall and exhaled slowly. "Denise," he whispered to the empty elevator. "I really hope you're watching, because I might have just done something incredibly stupid." The call came at 6:47 p.m. Marcus was sitting in Mrs. Patterson's living room, watching Lily do her homework at the kitchen table. His phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Mr. Johnson, this is Patricia Wells from Sterling Tech HR." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Yes. Ms. Sterling would like to see you in her office tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. before your shift begins." "Am I being terminated?" A pause. "I honestly don't know, Mr. Johnson. She didn't say. She just asked me to schedule the meeting." "I'll be there." 7 a.m. sharp. Don't be late." The line went dead. Lily looked up from her homework. "Daddy?" "Who was that?" "Work stuff, baby. Nothing to worry about." "You look worried." Marcus forced a smile. "I'm fine. How's the math going?" "Terrible. Fractions are stupid." "Fractions are important." "Fractions are stupid and important. That's the worst combination." Despite everything, Marcus laughed. He walked over and sat down next to her, looking at the worksheet covered in her careful handwriting. "Okay, let's figure these out together." For the next hour, Marcus helped his daughter with fractions, forcing himself to focus on the present moment, instead of the meeting waiting for him tomorrow. This was what Denise would have wanted. This was what she had taught him in those final months, when every day was precious and fear was a luxury they couldn't afford. Be here. Be present. Tomorrow will come whether you worry about it or not. After Lily went to bed, Marcus sat on the porch with Mrs. Patterson. "So?" The older woman handed him a cup of coffee. "What happened?" Marcus told her everything. The conference room. Victoria Sterling. The words that had come out of his mouth like they had a will of their own. Mrs. Patterson listened without interrupting. When he finished, she shook her head slowly. "Marcus Johnson, you are either the bravest man I know or the dumbest." "Probably both." "What are you going to do if she fires you?" "Find another job. What else can I do?" "You could apologize, beg for your position back." Marcus sipped his coffee. "No, I couldn't." "Why not?" "Because I wasn't wrong." He stared out at the street, at the houses where families were settling in for the night, at the ordinary neighborhood that had become his whole world after Denise died. That man didn't deserve what she was doing to him. Nobody deserves that. And if I have to lose my job because I said so, then at least I'll be able to look Lily in the eye. Mrs. Patterson reached over and patted his hand. "Denise would be proud of you." "Denise would say I should have kept my mouth shut, and let someone else fight the battle. No, she wouldn't. That woman never kept her mouth shut about anything in her life. Mrs. Patterson smiled. You married a firecracker, Marcus, and she married one right back. Marcus laughed softly. I miss her. I know you do, honey. I know you do. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Tomorrow would come soon enough. Marcus arrived at Sterling Tech at 6:45 a.m. The building was mostly empty at this hour. A few early risers moved through the lobby, clutching coffee cups and avoiding eye contact. The security guard waved him through without comment. The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt endless. Victoria's assistant was already at her desk when Marcus stepped off the elevator. She looked up, and something flickered across her face. Curiosity, maybe. Or pity. Mr. Johnson, Ms. Sterling is expecting you. Go right in. Marcus walked to the corner office and knocked. Enter. He opened the door. Victoria Sterling sat behind a desk that probably cost more than his car. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city's skyline behind her. She was reviewing documents, and she didn't look up when he came in. Sit. Marcus sat in one of the leather chairs facing her desk. For a full minute, Victoria continued reading, making notes, ignoring his presence entirely. Marcus waited. He had learned patience in hospital waiting rooms, watching Denise's vitals on monitors, counting the seconds between one labored breath and the next. This was nothing. Finally, Victoria set down her pen and looked at him. I've been trying to decide what to do with you, Mr. Johnson. And I'm still trying to decide. She leaned back in her chair. In 12 years of running this company, no one has ever spoken to me the way you did yesterday. Not my board members, not my investors, not my executive team, no one. Maybe they should have. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. I said maybe they should have. Maybe if someone had told you the truth a long time ago, you wouldn't need to terrorize people to get results. I don't terrorize people. I hold them to standards. You made a grown man shake like a leaf over a broken projector. That's not standards. That's cruelty. Victoria stood up abruptly. She walked to the window, her back to him. You know nothing about me. You're right, I don't. Then how dare you judge me? I'm not judging you, Ms. Sterling. I'm judging your actions. There's a difference. Victoria turned to face him. The morning light caught her face at an angle, and for a moment she looked younger than her reputation suggested. Younger and tired. Why aren't you afraid of me? The question came out differently than her other words. Softer. Almost vulnerable. Marcus considered his answer carefully. Because I've already lost the thing I was most afraid of losing. Which is my wife, Denise. She died 3 years ago. The words came easier now than they used to. Cancer. I watched her fight it for 18 months. I watched her lose. I held her hand when she took her last breath. Victoria said nothing. Her face remained unreadable. After something like that, Marcus continued, everything else feels manageable. You can fire me, Ms. Sterling. You can make sure I never work in this city again. It won't be the worst thing that's ever happened to me, not even close. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, she said finally. About your wife. Thank you. You have a daughter. Lily. She's 8. So you need this job. I do. We're not rich. I work nights so I can be home with her during the day. This schedule, this pay, it's what keeps us going. But you still spoke up yesterday. Yes. Why? Marcus leaned forward. Because my daughter is going to grow up in this world, and I have to teach her what kind of person to be. If I stay silent when I see something wrong, what am I teaching her? That it's okay to let people suffer, as long as you protect yourself. That courage only matters when it's convenient. He shook his head. I can't do that. I won't. Denise wouldn't have wanted me to raise our daughter that way, and I won't dishonor her memory by becoming a coward. Victoria walked back to her desk but didn't sit down. She stood behind her chair, gripping the leather back with both hands. When I was 22, my business partner betrayed me. The words came out flat, almost clinical. We were building a tech startup together. He was my best friend. I trusted him completely. She paused. He stole everything. Our designs, our funding, our clients. Sold it all to a competitor and disappeared. Left me with nothing but debt and a lawsuit I couldn't afford to fight. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me a valuable lesson. Victoria's grip tightened on the chair. Trust is a weakness. People will always disappoint you. The only person you can rely on is yourself. That sounds lonely. It's practical. It sounds lonely, Marcus repeated. Victoria stared at him. For a moment, something cracked in her carefully composed expression. Something raw and painful peeked through before she forced it back down. I built a $4 billion company from nothing. I sit on 4 corporate boards. I've been on the cover of Fortune 3 times. Her voice hardened. I am not lonely. I am successful. Those aren't mutually exclusive. What? I said, you can be successful and lonely at the same time. Money doesn't fill an empty house. Power doesn't keep you warm at night. Success doesn't hold your hand when you're scared. Victoria flinched. Actually flinched like he had struck her. How dare you? I'm not trying to hurt you, Ms. Sterling. I'm trying to tell you the truth. That's what you're not getting from the people around you. They're too afraid to be honest. And you're not. No, ma'am, I'm not. They stared at each other across the vast expanse of her corner office. The morning sun climbed higher, flooding the room with golden light. I'm not going to fire you, Victoria said finally. Marcus blinked. You're not? No. She sat down heavily in her chair. I don't know why. I should. Every protocol, every instinct, every rule I've lived by says I should escort you out of this building and make sure you never work in this industry again. So why aren't you? Victoria looked at him with something that might have been wonder. Because you're the first real thing I've encountered in 12 years. Marcus didn't know how to respond to that. Go back to work, Mr. Johnson. Do your job. Stay out of my way. She picked up her pen and returned to her documents. This conversation never happened. Marcus stood. He walked to the door, then stopped. Ms. Sterling. She didn't look up. What? For what it's worth, I think you're better than this. Better than the person you've made yourself become. Victoria's pen stopped moving. You don't know me. No, ma'am, I don't. But I know scared people. I know hurt people. And I know that building walls doesn't actually protect you from pain. It just locks you inside with it. He left before she could respond. The days that followed were strange. Marcus went back to his routine cleaning floors, emptying trash, working the quiet night hours, while Lily slept at Mrs. Patterson's house. But something had shifted in the building. Word had spread about the janitor who talked back to Victoria Sterling and lived to tell about it. People started acknowledging him in the hallways. Not just other maintenance staff, but executives, managers, people who normally wouldn't have noticed someone in a gray uniform. You're the guy, aren't you? A young woman in marketing asked him one evening. The one who stood up to her. I just said what I thought. Nobody does that. Ever. She shook her head in amazement. You're either the bravest person in this building or completely crazy. I've been told it's probably both. She laughed and walked away. Robert Chen found him in the break room a few nights later, sharing details about the aftermath of the conference room incident. The projector had been fixed. No one had been fired. Victoria had been quieter than usual, less explosive, though no one was sure if it would last. She's been different since that day, Robert said. Still demanding, still tough, but I don't know. Something's off, like she's thinking about something else. Marcus poured himself a cup of coffee. People don't change overnight. No, they don't. Robert studied him. But sometimes they start. Sometimes all it takes is one person saying the thing everyone else was too scared to say, I'm not trying to change anyone. I just wanted to do the right thing. That's exactly why it might work. Friday night, Marcus was cleaning the executive floor when he heard a sound coming from Victoria's office. He stopped outside her door, which was slightly ajar. Victoria was sitting at her desk, her face illuminated by the glow of her computer screen. But she wasn't working. She was just sitting there staring at the wall. Marcus should have kept walking, should have minded his own business, should have remembered that this woman held his livelihood in her hands, and every interaction was a risk. Instead, he knocked softly on the doorframe. Victoria's head snapped toward him. For a moment, her face was unguarded, tired, sad, almost vulnerable. Then the mask slipped back into place. "Mr. Johnson?" "Ms. Sterling, I saw your light on. Just wanted to make sure everything was okay." "I'm fine." "You don't look fine. I didn't ask for your assessment." Marcus nodded and started to turn away. "Wait." He stopped. Victoria stood and walked to the window, her back to him. The city lights spread out below, like a galaxy of earthbound stars. "Do you ever wonder if you've built the wrong thing?" The question was so quiet Marcus almost didn't hear it. "What do you mean?" "I mean..." She paused. "I've spent 12 years building this company, working 16-hour days, sacrificing everything. And now I have everything I was working toward. The money, the power, the success. But I go home to an empty apartment every night. I eat dinner alone. I haven't had a real conversation with another human being in years, until you showed up and refused to be afraid of me." She turned to face him. "How did you do it, Mr. Johnson? After losing your wife? How did you keep going? How did you keep believing that life was worth living?" Marcus thought about the question. He thought about Lily, about pancakes on Saturday mornings, about the way sunlight looked through his kitchen window when his daughter laughed. "I didn't for a while," he admitted. "For about 6 months after Denise died, I was just existing, going through the motions, taking care of Lily because I had to, but not really present, not really alive." "What changed?" "My daughter asked me if I was sad because she didn't make me happy anymore." Victoria's breath caught. That question broke something in me. Or maybe it fixed something. I realized I had a choice. I could spend the rest of my life trapped in grief and fear, or I could honor what Denise gave me by actually living. She loved life. She loved people. She loved connection. The best way I could remember her was to do the same. That sounds beautiful. It sounds simple. It wasn't. It still isn't. Marcus moved closer to the window, standing beside her, but keeping a respectful distance. "But I learned that fear doesn't actually protect us from pain. It just makes us smaller while we wait for it. The only thing that really protects us is connection, love, being part of something bigger than ourselves." Victoria was quiet for a long time. "I don't know how to do that," she said finally. "I don't know how to let people in. I've been guarding myself for so long I've forgotten what it feels like to not have walls." "You could start small." "How?" "Tomorrow when you see someone in the hallway, say good morning, not as their boss, just as another person." Victoria looked at him like he had suggested she jump off the building. "That's it. Say good morning. That's it. That's where it starts. One small connection at a time." Victoria turned back to the window. Her reflection stared back at her, translucent and ghostly against the city lights. "You really aren't afraid of me, are you, Mr. Johnson?" "No, ma'am, I'm not." "Why not?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Because I can see the person behind the walls, and she doesn't look scary to me. She looks tired and sad, and like she could really use a friend." Victoria's eyes glistened. She blinked rapidly, fighting back tears she probably hadn't allowed herself to shed in years. "Go home to your daughter, Mr. Johnson." "Yes, ma'am." Marcus walked to the door. "Mr. Johnson." He turned back. Victoria Sterling stood silhouetted against 40 floors of city lights, a billionaire CEO with the world at her feet and emptiness in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me." Marcus nodded once, then walked out into the quiet hallway. Behind him, Victoria remained at the window, staring at her reflection. The walls she had built so carefully were starting to crack, and she wasn't sure yet if that terrified her or gave her hope. Marcus drove home through empty streets, the city settling into its nighttime rhythms around him. At Mrs. Patterson's house, Lily was asleep on the couch, a book still clutched in her hands. Marcus lifted her, gently carried her to the car, and drove the 3 blocks to their small house. He tucked her into bed, smoothing the hair from her forehead, the way Denise used to do. "Love you, baby girl," he whispered. "Love you too, Daddy," Lily mumbled without opening her eyes. Marcus stood in her doorway for a long moment watching her sleep. His daughter. His reason for everything. The reason he got up every morning, worked every night, kept putting one foot in front of the other, even when the grief threatened to swallow him whole. Denise had given him the greatest gift of his life, and now it was his job to raise that gift right. To show Lily what courage looked like, what integrity meant, what it cost to be a good person in a world that didn't always reward goodness. Tomorrow he would go back to Sterling Tech. He would push his cart through hallways of wealth and power. He would clean up after people who earned more in an hour than he made in a month. But he would do it with his head high. Because Marcus Johnson knew something that Victoria Sterling was only beginning to learn. Real strength wasn't about power or money or control. Real strength was about showing up every day, doing the right thing, and refusing to let fear turn you into someone you couldn't recognize. Denise had taught him that. And now maybe he was teaching it to someone else. The cracks in Victoria's walls were just the beginning. Marcus could feel it. Something was changing in that building of glass and steel. And he was right in the middle of it. The following Monday, Marcus noticed the first change. He was mopping the hallway outside the executive break room when Victoria Sterling walked past. She paused, looked at him, and for a moment seemed to struggle with something internal. "Good morning, Mr. Johnson." Marcus nearly dropped his mop. "Good morning, Ms. Sterling." She nodded once awkwardly, like she had just performed a task she had been practicing all weekend. Then she continued down the hallway, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Marcus watched her go, stunned. Behind him, a young woman from accounting stood frozen with her coffee cup halfway to her lips. "Did she just say good morning to you?" "I think so. She's never said good morning to anyone, ever. I've been here 4 years. Marcus returned to mopping. "People change. Victoria Sterling doesn't change. Victoria Sterling fires people who suggest change." The woman shook her head in disbelief. "What did you do to her?" "I just told her the truth." "The truth about what?" Marcus smiled slightly. "That she looked like she could use a friend." The woman stared at him for a long moment, then walked away muttering something about janitors and miracles. Over the next 2 weeks, the changes continued. Small things at first. Victoria started arriving at meetings without the temperature in the room dropping. She asked questions instead of issuing commands. She listened to answers without immediately tearing them apart. The staff noticed. They whispered about it in break rooms and hallways, trying to figure out what had happened, what had shifted. Some thought she was sick. Others wondered if she was planning something, lulling them into a false sense of security before the hammer fell. Robert Chen found Marcus in the basement one evening, loading supplies onto his cart. "It's you," Robert said. "Whatever's happening to her, it's because of you." "I didn't do anything." "You did something. She's different." Yesterday in a meeting, Thompson's presentation crashed and she just told him to email her the slides later. No yelling, no threats, just patience. Marcus closed his supply closet. Maybe she's just tired of being angry all the time. Victoria Sterling doesn't get tired. She makes other people tired. Robert leaned against the wall. Seriously, Marcus? What did you say to her? I told her she looked lonely. Robert laughed. And she didn't fire you on the spot. She thought about it. But she didn't. No, she didn't. Robert shook his head slowly. You know what I think. I think you're the first person who's ever treated her like a human being instead of a hurricane to survive. And I think she doesn't know what to do with that. Marcus pushed his cart toward the elevator. Maybe she'll figure it out. Maybe, Robert called after him. But watch your back, man. People like her don't change without a fight. And the fight usually isn't with other people. It's with themselves. The elevator doors closed on Robert's worried face. Marcus rode up to the executive floor, thinking about walls and cracks and what happened when structures that had stood for years started to crumble. Victoria was waiting for him. She stood in the hallway outside her office, arms crossed, watching the elevator doors open. Her expression was unreadable. Mr. Johnson, a word. It wasn't a question. Marcus followed her into her office. She closed the door behind them and gestured to the chair across from her desk. Sit. He sat. Victoria didn't sit. She paced behind her desk, her movements sharp and agitated. I did what you said. What I said. I said good morning. To people. Random people in hallways. My assistant, the security guard, the woman who runs the coffee cart in the lobby. And... Victoria stopped pacing. She turned to face him, and there was something almost wounded in her expression. They looked at me like I had lost my mind. One of them actually backed away from me like I was about to attack. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I try to be human for 5 minutes, and people act like I'm playing some kind of cruel game. What did you expect? You've spent 12 years teaching them to be afraid. I expected... She trailed off, then dropped into her chair heavily. I don't know what I expected, something different. Something that felt less... empty. Marcus leaned forward. Ms. Sterling, you can't undo 12 years of fear with a few good mornings. These people have built their survival strategies around avoiding your attention. It's going to take time for them to trust that you've actually changed. Have I changed? The question was raw, honest, in a way that surprised him. I don't know, Marcus said. Have you? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the window, her back to him. When I was 23, right after my partner betrayed me, I made myself a promise. I promised I would never be vulnerable again. Never let anyone close enough to hurt me. Never depend on anyone for anything. She pressed her hand against the glass. I kept that promise for 12 years, and now you're telling me it was the wrong promise to keep. I'm not telling you anything. I'm just asking questions. You're doing more than that. Victoria turned to face him. You're making me question everything I built, everything I am, and I don't know if I should thank you or hate you for it. Maybe both. That's usually how growth works. Victoria almost smiled. Almost. How did you get so wise, Mr. Johnson, pushing a cleaning cart through office buildings? I'm not wise. I just learned some things the hard way. From your wife. From losing her. Marcus's voice softened. When you watch someone you love die, you learn pretty quickly what matters and what doesn't. Power doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter. Control doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is connection. The people you love. The moments you share. Everything else is just noise. Victoria sat back down. She looked smaller somehow, less armored. I don't have anyone, she said quietly. I pushed everyone away. My family, my friends, anyone who tried to get close. I told myself I was protecting myself, but I was really just building a prison. Prisons have doors, Miss Sterling. You can walk out whenever you're ready. What if I've forgotten how? Then you learn again, one step at a time. They sat in silence for a while. The city hummed 40 floors below, millions of people living their lives, making their connections, building their relationships. Will you help me? The question startled Marcus. Help you what? Learn how to be human again. Victoria's voice was barely above a whisper. I know it's not your job. I know I have no right to ask. But you're the only person who's ever looked at me without fear, and I don't know who else to turn to. Marcus thought about Denise, about what she would say if she could see him now sitting in a billionaire's office, being asked to teach humanity to someone who had forgotten it. She would laugh, probably. Then she would tell him to help. Okay, Marcus said. But I have conditions. Name them. First, you treat me as an equal, not an employee, not a janitor, not someone beneath you. If we're going to do this, we do it as two people. Nothing more, nothing less. Victoria nodded. Agreed. Second, you have to actually try, not just go through the motions. Real effort, real change. If I see you tearing someone apart in a meeting, we're done. That's fair. Third, Marcus paused. You have to tell me the truth. About yourself, about your past, about why you became the person you are. I can't help you change if I don't understand what I'm working with. Victoria's expression flickered. This was harder for her than the others. That's a lot to ask. I know, but it's necessary. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she extended her hand across the desk. Deal. Marcus shook it. Her grip was firm, but her hand trembled slightly. When do we start? She asked. We already have. The next evening, Marcus found a note on his locker. Meet me on the roof. 8 p.m. V. He had never been to the roof, didn't even know there was access. But he found the service stairway and climbed the final flight to a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. It was unlocked. Victoria stood near the edge of the rooftop, looking out at the city. She had changed out of her usual business attire into something simpler. Dark jeans, a gray sweater, flat shoes. She looked almost like a normal person. I come up here sometimes, she said without turning around. When the building feels too small. When I need to breathe. Marcus walked over and stood beside her. The city spread out below them, a vast tapestry of lights and movement and life. It's beautiful, he said. It's mine. Victoria's voice was flat. I own 12 of those buildings. I have stakes in another 30. I could buy that hotel on the corner with the money in my checking account. Does that make you happy? I thought it would. She finally turned to look at him. My whole life I've been chasing this. Success, wealth, power. I thought if I could just get enough of it, I would finally feel safe, finally feel like I mattered. And now I stand on rooftops and look at everything I own and feel absolutely nothing. Marcus didn't respond. He just waited. Tell me about your wife, Victoria said. What was she like? The question caught him off guard, but he had promised to be honest, and honesty went both ways. Denise was light. The word came out before he could think of a better one. She walked into a room and everything got brighter, not because she was trying to be charming or impressive, just because that's who she was. She made everyone feel like they mattered. How did you meet? Church, actually. I was 25, just moved to Chicago, didn't know anyone. She was running the welcome committee, made me feel at home before I even sat down for service. Marcus smiled at the memory. I asked her out that same day. She turned me down. Really? Told me she didn't date strangers, so I spent the next 3 months making sure I wasn't a stranger anymore. Showed up every Sunday. Volunteered for every committee she was on. Finally, she agreed to have coffee with me just to make me stop pestering her. And then we talked for 6 hours straight. The coffee shop closed around us and we didn't even notice. I knew by the end of that night that I was going to marry her. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Did you ever fight? All the time. Marcus laughed. Denise was stubborn as a mule. So am I. We disagreed about everything from where to live to how to load the dishwasher. But we always worked through it, always came back to each other. How? We decided early on that we would never go to bed angry. No matter what we were fighting about, we would talk it through before we slept. Sometimes that meant staying up until 3 in the morning. Sometimes it meant one of us swallowing our pride and admitting we were wrong. But we never let the sun set on our anger. Victoria turned back to the city. I've never had that, any of it. Not the fights, not the making up, not the partnership. Why not? Because I chose this instead. She gestured at the skyline. I chose buildings and board meetings and balance sheets. I told myself there would be time for the rest later. That once I was secure enough, successful enough, powerful enough, I could think about love and family and all the things normal people have. And now I'm 34 years old with more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and I eat dinner alone every single night. Marcus let the silence sit for a while before speaking. It's not too late, you know. Isn't it? My grandmother had a saying. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. He turned to face her. You can't get back the years you spent building walls, but you can decide what you want the next 20 years to look like. What if I don't know what I want? Then that's where we start. Figuring out what Victoria Sterling actually wants when she's not trying to protect herself from the world. Victoria met his eyes. In the dim light of the rooftop, her expression was softer than he had ever seen it. Thank you, Marcus. It was the first time she had used his first name. You're welcome, Victoria. She smiled. A real smile, small and uncertain, like a muscle she had forgotten how to use. Same time tomorrow. I work tomorrow night. Then we'll talk while you work. I'll follow you around with your cleaning cart if I have to. Marcus laughed. The staff will think you've completely lost your mind. Let them think what they want. Victoria's smile widened slightly. Maybe it's time they saw a different side of me. The next night, true to her word, Victoria found Marcus on the 32nd floor. She had changed into casual clothes again. Clearly, she kept them somewhere in the building, and she fell into step beside him as he pushed his cart down the hallway. What are we doing tonight? I'm cleaning offices. You're answering questions. What kind of questions? Marcus stopped outside a corner office and unlocked it with his master key. Tell me about your family. Victoria followed him inside, watching as he emptied the trash and wiped down surfaces. My family. She leaned against the door frame. My father was a businessman. Started with nothing, built a small manufacturing company, lost it all in the recession of '08. My mother left when I was 12. Said she didn't sign up to be poor. I'm sorry. Don't be. She was right to leave. My father became a different person after the business failed. Bitter, angry, drunk most of the time. Victoria's voice was flat, clinical, like she was reading from a report. I left home at 17 with a scholarship and a promise never to end up like him. Is he still alive? Died 4 years ago, liver failure. I paid for the funeral but didn't attend. Marcus finished with the office and moved to the next one. Victoria followed. Do you regret that, not going to the funeral? Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep. I wonder if he changed at the end, if he wanted to see me. She paused. But mostly I just feel relief that he's gone, that I don't have to wonder anymore if he's going to show up demanding money or making scenes. What about your mother? She remarried, lives in Florida. We exchange Christmas cards. It's very civilized. Victoria's tone made it clear how much she hated that word. Civilized. She sent me a congratulations note when I made my first billion. Signed it, Your Proud Mother. As if she had anything to do with it. Marcus moved through 2 more offices in silence, letting Victoria sit with her own words. You think I'm cold, she said finally. I think you've had to be. Is that the same thing? No. Marcus turned to face her. Cold is a choice. Survival is a necessity. You did what you had to do to get out of a bad situation. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you strong. Then why does it feel so empty? Because strength without connection is just armor, and armor gets heavy after a while. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question he had been waiting for. How do I take it off? Slowly, carefully, one piece at a time. Marcus resumed cleaning. You start by letting people see the truth. Not the whole truth, not all at once. Just enough to remind them and yourself that there's a person underneath all that steel. What if they use it against me? Some might. That's the risk. But most people aren't looking for weapons. They're looking for connection, same as you. How do you know? Marcus smiled. Because I've been a janitor in this building for 3 weeks, and in that time, I've had more real conversations with people than I've had in years. The receptionist who's worried about her son's college applications, the security guard whose wife just had a baby, the IT guy who's learning guitar because his daughter wants to start a band. I don't know any of those things. Because you never asked. Victoria absorbed this. I've walked past those people every day for years. I never even looked at them. It's not too late to start. The next morning, Marcus got a text from an unknown number. I asked the security guard about his baby. Her name is Maya. She was born 3 weeks early, but she's healthy. He showed me pictures. Marcus smiled and typed back. How did it feel? The response came a minute later. Terrifying. But good. Like remembering something I forgot I knew. The changes accelerated after that. Victoria started eating lunch in the common cafeteria instead of her office. The first day, the entire room went silent when she walked in. People scattered like she was a shark entering a swimming pool, but she sat down anyway. Alone at a corner table eating a salad, looking as uncomfortable as everyone else felt. The second day was the same. And the third. On the fourth day, Robert Chen sat down across from her. Mind if I join you? Victoria looked up, startled. No, please. Robert unwrapped his sandwich. So, the janitor. What about him? He's got you doing something. Whatever it is, keep doing it. People are noticing. Noticing what? Robert took a bite of his sandwich, chewing thoughtfully before answering. That maybe you're not as scary as we thought. Victoria's expression flickered. I am still your boss. I can still fire you. Yes, ma'am, but you won't. How do you know? Robert grinned. Because the old Victoria Sterling wouldn't be eating lunch in the cafeteria like a regular person. She wouldn't be asking the security guard about his baby. And she definitely wouldn't be letting a janitor give her life advice. Victoria stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. You're not as dumb as you look, Robert. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. It's the closest I've ever come to giving one. That night, Victoria found Marcus on the 28th floor. Robert Chen ate lunch with me today. I heard. He called me out. Said people are noticing that I'm different. How did that make you feel? Victoria leaned against the wall while Marcus cleaned around her. Exposed. Like I've been walking around naked and everyone can see. That's vulnerability. It's supposed to feel like that. I hate it. I know. Keep doing it anyway. Victoria laughed. It was a real laugh, surprised and genuine, and it transformed her face completely. You're a strange man, Marcus Johnson. And you're a work in progress, Victoria Sterling. Is that what I am? A project. Marcus stopped cleaning and turned to face her. No. You're a person who lost her way and is trying to find it again. That's not a project. That's just life. Victoria held his gaze for a long moment. Something passed between them. Not romantic, not yet, but something deeper. Recognition. Understanding. The beginning of a connection that neither of them fully understood. Same time tomorrow. Same time tomorrow. Victoria pushed off the wall and headed for the elevator. She stopped at the doors and turned back. Marcus? Yeah. Thank you. For not giving up on me. I never give up on people who are willing to try. The elevator doors opened. Victoria stepped inside, then held them open for one more moment. My mother called tonight, first time in 3 years. She wants to have lunch. What did you say? I said yes. The doors closed on her uncertain smile. Marcus stood alone in the hallway, thinking about walls and doors, and the courage it took to open them. Somewhere in this building of glass and steel, a billionaire was learning to be human again. And Marcus Johnson, a janitor with nothing but a cleaning cart and a promise to his dead wife, was the one teaching her how. Denise would have loved this, he thought. She always did have a weakness for impossible cases. The lunch with Victoria's mother happened on a Tuesday. Marcus didn't hear about it until 3 days later when Victoria appeared in the basement supply room at 11 p.m., her eyes red and swollen. She wanted money. Marcus set down the supplies he was loading. What? My mother. The lunch. The first time she reaches out in 3 years, and it's because her husband's business is failing. She needs $200,000 to keep them afloat. Victoria laughed bitterly. She didn't even pretend it was about seeing me, got through the appetizers before she asked. What did you do? I wrote her a check. What else was I supposed to do? She's my mother. Marcus pulled out a folding chair from the corner and gestured for her to sit. She did heavily, like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. How do you feel? Stupid, angry, disappointed. Victoria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I should have known better. People don't change. They just get better at hiding what they want. That's not true. Isn't it my mother abandoned me when I was 12 because we were poor? Now she shows up when I'm rich because she needs something. What part of that suggests people change? Marcus sat down on an overturned bucket across from her. Your mother's choices are about her, not about you, and not about everyone else in the world. Easy for you to say. You had a wife who loved you. I also had a father who walked out when I was 6 and never came back. I had a brother who stole from me to feed his addiction. I had friends who disappeared when Denise got sick because they didn't know how to handle it. Marcus kept his voice steady. Everyone has people who've let them down, Victoria. The question is whether you let those people define how you see everyone else. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was smaller than he'd ever heard it. I wanted her to be proud of me. All these years building this company, making myself into someone powerful. Part of me was always doing it for her, proving that I was worth staying for. And now I realize she was never going to see me that way. No matter what I achieve, no matter how much money I make, I'll always just be a resource to her, something to be used. Marcus reached over and put his hand on her shoulder. Then stop trying to earn her approval. You don't need it. You never did. Victoria looked up at him. How do you do that? Do what? Make everything sound so simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. Marcus squeezed her shoulder once, then let go. You decide who you want to be. You decide what matters. And then you live that way, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Even if it hurts. Especially when it hurts. That's how you know it's real. Victoria sat in the basement supply room for another hour, talking about her mother, her father, the childhood she'd survived, and the armor she'd built because of it. Marcus listened without judgment, asking questions when she got stuck, offering perspective when she spiraled. By the time she left, something had shifted again. The walls weren't just cracking anymore. They were starting to crumble. The next 2 weeks were a roller coaster. Victoria threw herself into change with the same intensity she'd once applied to building her empire. She memorized employees' names. She asked about their families. She started having skip-level meetings with junior staff, something she'd never done in 12 years of running the company. Some people responded well. Robert Chen became something like an ally, helping her navigate the awkwardness of trying to be human after years of being a tyrant. The receptionist Maria warmed up enough to start saving Victoria's favorite muffin from the morning delivery. Others were more skeptical. She's playing us. Marcus overheard one manager say in the break room. This whole nice act, it's going to blow up eventually. And when it does, everyone who trusted her is going to pay for it. You don't know that, another voice responded. I know Victoria Sterling. She doesn't change. She adapts. And when she's done adapting, she destroys whatever got in her way. Marcus kept walking, pretending he hadn't heard, but the words stuck with him. Was Victoria really changing, or was this just another strategy, another adaptation to circumstances she couldn't control? He wanted to believe it was real, but doubt was hard to shake. That night, Victoria found him on the 35th floor. You're quiet tonight. Marcus continued wiping down a conference table. Just thinking. About what? About whether people can really change, or if we just get better at performing different versions of ourselves. Victoria leaned against the doorframe. That's a heavy question for a Tuesday night. It's been a heavy few weeks. She was quiet for a moment. Then she walked into the room and sat in one of the executive chairs. You're wondering if I'm real? If any of this is real? Marcus stopped cleaning. Are you... I don't know. Victoria's voice was honest, uncertain. Sometimes I feel like I'm waking up from a 12-year sleep, like I'm finally seeing the world clearly for the first time. And other times what? Other times I feel like I'm pretending. Going through motions I don't understand, saying things I'm supposed to say, being someone I don't recognize. She looked at him directly. Is that normal? Yes. Marcus resumed cleaning. Change isn't a straight line. It's messy and confusing, and you spend half the time wondering if you're making progress or just fooling yourself. How do you know which one it is? You don't. Not in the moment. You only know looking back when you can see how far you've come. Victoria absorbed this. My board is getting nervous. About what? About me. About the changes. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through something. I got an email this morning from my largest shareholder. He said, and I'm quoting here, "We're concerned that your recent behavioral shifts may indicate instability that could affect company performance." What did you tell him? Nothing yet. I don't know what to say. Victoria set her phone down. They liked me better when I was terrifying. Fear is predictable. Whatever I'm becoming now, it's not. Are you thinking about going back to who you were? The question hung in the air between them. Victoria was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Every day, every single day, there's a voice in my head telling me this is a mistake, that I was safer behind the walls, that at least when people feared me, they couldn't hurt me. And what do you tell that voice? I tell it to shut up. Victoria smiled slightly. It doesn't listen, but I tell it anyway. Marcus finished with the conference room and moved toward the door. Victoria stood to follow him. Marcus. Yeah. Thank you for not letting me quit. You haven't wanted to quit. I've wanted to quit every day. I just haven't done it yet. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? Marcus turned to face her. Wanting to quit and actually quitting are completely different. Everyone wants to quit when things get hard. The people who change are the ones who keep going anyway. Victoria nodded slowly. I'll try to remember that. You will, because I'm going to keep reminding you. For the first time in weeks, Victoria laughed. A real laugh, surprised and genuine. You're a stubborn man, Marcus Johnson. I've been told. The crisis came without warning. It was a Thursday evening just past 7. Most of the building had emptied out, leaving only the dedicated workaholics and the night staff. Marcus was on the 23rd floor working through his usual routine when the lights went out. Not a flicker. Not a gradual dimming. Complete instantaneous darkness. Marcus froze, one hand still on his cleaning cart. Emergency lights kicked in a few seconds later, casting everything in that harsh, institutional glow that made every shadow look wrong. His phone buzzed. A text from building security. Total power failure. All floors affected. Elevators non-operational. Emergency protocols activated. Marcus grabbed his flashlight and headed for the stairwell. The next 2 hours were chaos. People trapped in elevators. Panicked employees stumbling through dark hallways. The server room screaming about imminent data loss as backup systems struggled to stay online. Marcus moved through it all with the calm he'd learned in hospital waiting rooms, directing traffic, helping people find exits, keeping his voice steady when everyone else was losing control. On the 40th floor, he found Victoria in her office shouting into her phone. "I don't care what the manual says. Get those generators running, or I will personally—" She stopped when she saw Marcus. "I have to go." She hung up and turned to face him. "The backup generators aren't engaging. Something's wrong with the automatic failover. If we don't get them running in the next 30 minutes, we lose everything." Everything. Client data, financial records, contracts. 12 years of company history stored on servers that are draining their emergency power as we speak. Marcus moved toward the door. "Where are the generators?" "Third floor mechanical room. But the maintenance team is stuck in the elevator on 15. They can't get to it." "I can." Victoria stared at him. "You're a janitor." "I used to work building maintenance. Before this job." Marcus was already heading for the stairs. "I know how these systems work." "Marcus, wait." But he was already gone, taking the stairs 2 at a time, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The mechanical room was a maze of pipes and panels and equipment that hummed with potential energy. Marcus found the generator control system and started working through the manual override sequence. His hands moved from memory. Years ago, before Denise got sick, before Lily was born, he'd worked maintenance at a building half this size. The systems were different, but the principles were the same. Switch by switch, connection by connection. The generators groaned, sputtered, fell silent. Marcus checked the fuel lines, found a clogged filter, cleared it with tools he found in a nearby cabinet. Tried again. This time the generators roared to life. Lights flickered throughout the building. Somewhere above him, he heard cheering. Marcus leaned against the wall and let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "You did it. Get up here." He found her on the 40th floor, surrounded by executives who had materialized from somewhere once the crisis was over. They were all talking at once, asking questions, demanding explanations. Victoria held up her hand for silence. "Everyone out. I need to speak with Mr. Johnson alone." The executives exchanged glances, but filed out obediently. Old habits died hard. When they were gone, Victoria closed her office door and turned to face him. "You just saved $15 million worth of data." "I just flipped some switches." "Switches that no one else knew how to flip." Victoria moved closer. "How did you know what to do?" "I told you I worked maintenance before." "You also told me you were just a janitor who cleaned floors." "I am just a janitor who cleans floors. The maintenance thing was 20 years ago." "But you remembered." "Some things you don't forget." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question he'd been expecting. "Why are you here, Marcus? Really? A man with your skills, your presence, your ability to stay calm in a crisis. You could be doing so much more than pushing a cleaning cart." Marcus thought about how to answer. He thought about Denise, about Lily, about the choices that had led him here. "After my wife died, I needed something simple, something I could do without thinking, without feeling, without being present. Cleaning gave me that. Just me and the mop and the floor. No decisions, no responsibilities. No one depending on me except my daughter. And now I'm starting to remember what it feels like to be useful, to be part of something bigger than survival." He met her eyes. "You're not the only one who's been hiding, Victoria. You built walls out of fear. I built them out of grief. Maybe we're both learning to tear them down." Victoria stepped closer. Close enough that he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the vulnerability she'd spent years learning to hide. "I was terrified tonight," she said quietly. "Not of losing the data, not of the money. I was terrified that I wouldn't know how to handle it, that I would fall back into old patterns, screaming at people, blaming everyone, being the monster I used to be. But you didn't. Because you were there. Because I knew if I started losing control, you would look at me with those calm eyes and remind me that there's a better way. You don't need me for that. You already know the better way. Maybe. But I need you to remind me until I believe it. They stood in silence for a moment, the city lights spreading out behind Victoria like a universe of possibilities. "Stay," she said. "What?" "Don't leave after your shift. Stay and talk. I don't want to be alone tonight." Marcus thought about Lily sleeping at Mrs. Patterson's house. Thought about the texts he'd already sent explaining he'd be late. Thought about the line he was walking, the boundary between helping someone and becoming something more. "Okay," he said. "I'll stay." They talked until 3 in the morning, not about business or strategy or the crisis that had almost destroyed everything. They talked about life, about loss, about the things that mattered when everything else was stripped away. Victoria told him about the first time she'd felt powerful. 10 years old, standing up to a bully who was picking on a smaller kid. The rush of it, the way it made her feel like she could do anything. "That's when I learned that strength was safety," she said. "If I was strong enough, no one could hurt me." "But someone did hurt you." "Yes. And I decided the problem wasn't strength. The problem was that I wasn't strong enough. So I kept building, kept climbing, kept armoring myself until there was nothing left to protect." Marcus told her about the day Denise died, the morning light coming through the hospital window, the way her hand felt in his, so small, so cold, so unlike the warm, vibrant woman he'd married. "She made me promise something," he said. "Made me promise I wouldn't let grief turn me into a ghost, that I would keep living, keep loving, keep being present for Lily." "Have you kept that promise?" "I tried. Some days I succeeded. Some days I just survived until the next day." Marcus looked at her. "But I kept trying. That's all any of us can do." Victoria reached over and took his hand. Not romantically, just human connection. Two broken people finding solace in shared understanding. "I've never told anyone these things," she said. "Not the therapists my board made me see. Not the executive coaches they hired. Not anyone." "Why me?" "Because you don't want anything from me. Everyone else, they want money or power or access. You just want me to be a better person. No one's ever wanted that before." "That's not true. I'm sure there were people." "There weren't." Victoria's voice was firm. "I made sure of it. I pushed away anyone who might have cared. Surrounded myself with people who wanted things I could give them, so the transaction was always clear. And now I'm sitting in my office at 3 in the morning holding hands with my janitor, and it's the most honest human connection I've had in 12 years. She laughed softly. "My board would have a heart attack." "Probably." "I don't care." Victoria squeezed his hand. "For the first time in my life, I don't care what they think." The next morning, Marcus drove home as the sun was coming up. Lily was still asleep when he got there, Mrs. Patterson reading in the living room with a cup of coffee. Long night. Very long. Marcus collapsed into the armchair across from her. "There was a crisis at work. Power outage. I had to help fix it." "Since when do janitors fix power outages?" "Since this janitor used to work maintenance." Mrs. Patterson studied him over her coffee cup. "There's something you're not telling me." Marcus closed his eyes. "There's a lot I'm not telling you." "Is it about that woman, the billionaire? Her name is Victoria." "Is it about Victoria?" Marcus opened his eyes. "She's changing, really changing, and I'm helping her. I don't know what that makes me, friend, mentor, something else entirely, but I can't walk away." "Why not?" "Because she's lost, the same way I was lost after Denise died. And someone helped me find my way back. Multiple someones. You, Pastor Williams, The people at church who showed up with food and prayers and didn't ask for anything in return. He sat up straighter. How can I not pay that forward? Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. Denise would be proud of you, she said finally. You think so? I know so. That woman had a heart bigger than this whole city. She would have loved seeing you help someone find theirs. Lily wandered into the room, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, you're home late. Marcus opened his arms, and she climbed into his lap like she'd done since she was a toddler. Long night at work, baby girl, but I'm home now. Did something bad happen? Something bad almost happened, but we fixed it. Lily snuggled against his chest. You always fix things, Daddy. Marcus held his daughter close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. I try, baby. I try. That afternoon, Marcus's phone rang. Victoria's number. I did something, she said without preamble. Good something or bad something? I'm not sure yet. A pause. I called an emergency board meeting. For Monday. What are you going to tell them? The truth. About who I've been. About who I'm trying to become. About the changes I want to make to this company. Marcus sat down on his front porch watching Lily play in the yard. That's big. It's terrifying. Courage usually is. Will you be there? At a board meeting, Victoria, I'm a janitor. I know. But I need someone in that building who believes in me, even if they're pushing a cleaning cart on a different floor. Marcus thought about it. Thought about the line he kept walking, the boundary between helping someone and becoming too involved. I'll be there. Thank you, Marcus. Don't thank me yet. Thank me if it works. It will work. Victoria's voice carried a certainty he hadn't heard before. It has to, because I can't go back to who I was. I won't survive it. She hung up before he could respond. Marcus sat on his porch for a long time watching his daughter play, thinking about walls and courage and the terrifying freedom of finally telling the truth. Monday was coming, and everything was about to change. Monday arrived with the kind of gray sky that promised nothing and delivered less. Marcus got to Sterling Tech an hour before his shift, telling himself he was just being thorough. The truth was something he didn't want to examine too closely. Victoria had texted him at 6 a.m. Board meeting at 10. Wish me luck. He'd texted back, you don't need luck. You need courage. And you already have that. Now he pushed his cart through empty hallways, trying to focus on the work instead of the clock ticking toward 10. At 9:45, Robert Chen found him on the 28th floor. You know about the meeting? Marcus kept mopping. I know. The whole building knows. Word leaked somehow. People are saying she's either going to fire half the board or announce she's selling the company. People say a lot of things. Robert leaned against the wall. You know what's really happening, don't you? Marcus didn't answer. Whatever it is, Robert said, I hope it works. I've seen her these past few weeks. She's different, better. And I think you're the reason. She's the reason. I just asked questions. Sure. Robert pushed off the wall. I'm going to find somewhere to pretend to work while I wait for news. If anyone asks, I'm absolutely not hovering outside the boardroom. He disappeared down the hallway. Marcus checked his phone. 9:52. 8 minutes until everything changed. The boardroom was on the 42nd floor, 2 floors above Victoria's office. Marcus had never been up there. Never had a reason to. He had a reason now. At 10:15, he found himself standing in the service corridor behind the boardroom, close enough to hear muffled voices through the walls. He couldn't make out words, but he could hear the tone. Tension. Confusion. Anger. Then Victoria's voice cutting through the others, clear and steady. Marcus pressed his hand against the wall, as if he could send strength through concrete and steel. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Marcus cleaned the same stretch of hallway 4 times, refusing to leave, refusing to acknowledge why he was staying. Every time the voices behind the wall rose, his chest tightened. Every time they fell silent, his imagination filled in the worst possibilities. At 12:23, the boardroom doors opened. Men in expensive suits filed out, their faces unreadable. They walked past Marcus without seeing him, without registering the janitor with the mop, who had no business being on this floor. Victoria emerged last. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were red. Her usual perfect posture had crumbled into something more human. She saw Marcus and stopped. "You're here." "I said I would be." Victoria walked toward him slowly, like she wasn't sure her legs would hold. When she reached him, she leaned against the wall beside him, shoulder to shoulder. "How did it go?" Victoria laughed. It was not a happy sound. "They think I've lost my mind. 3 of them called for a vote of no confidence. 2 threatened to resign immediately. 1 suggested I might need medical evaluation." Marcus's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "I told them the truth." Victoria's voice was flat. "I told them I've spent 12 years building this company on fear, and I'm not doing it anymore. I told them about my childhood. My father, my mother, the betrayal that made me who I became. I told them everything. And they sat there in horrified silence while I stripped myself bare in front of them." She closed her eyes. 30 minutes of my deepest vulnerabilities laid out on a conference table like evidence in a trial. Marcus didn't know what to say. He waited. Then Richard Holloway. He's the largest shareholder, the one who sent that email about my behavioral shifts. He stood up and asked if I was finished with my performance. "What did you do?" I asked him what he meant. Victoria opened her eyes and looked at Marcus directly. He said, and I quote, "Victoria, we've known each other 15 years. In all that time, you've never once shown vulnerability, emotion, or anything resembling human weakness. And now, you expect us to believe that a few weeks of self-reflection have transformed you into a different person. This is either a manipulation tactic I don't understand, or you're having a breakdown. Either way, it's bad for business." "How did you respond?" I told him he was right. Marcus blinked. "What?" I told him he was absolutely right to be skeptical, that I had given him 15 years of reasons to distrust any sudden change, that if I were in his position, I wouldn't believe me either. Victoria's voice softened. And then I told him that his skepticism didn't change the truth, that I had been a terrible person and I was trying to become a better one, and if the board couldn't support that journey, then maybe this wasn't the right company for me anymore. "You threatened to leave." "I offered to resign." Marcus stared at her. "Victoria, I meant it." Her voice was fierce now, certain. "If the only way I can run this company is by being a monster, then I don't want to run it. I would rather walk away with nothing than go back to being the person I was." What did they say? Nothing. For about 30 seconds, no one said anything. I think I broke them. Victoria pushed off the wall and started walking toward the elevator. Marcus fell into step beside her, abandoning his cleaning cart. Then Margaret Chen, no relation to Robert, but she's the second largest shareholder, she stood up and said she believed me. Just like that. Not just like that. She said she'd been watching me for weeks. She said she'd noticed the changes, the way I was treating people, the way I was showing up differently. She said she didn't know if it was real or sustainable, but she was willing to give me a chance to prove it. The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside together. Margaret's endorsement shifted things. A few other board members started speaking up, saying they'd noticed changes too. The vote of no confidence failed 6-3. "So you're staying?" "I'm staying. With conditions." Victoria pressed the button for her floor. "Quarterly reviews of my leadership approach, regular feedback sessions with senior staff, and a recommendation strongly worded that I continue whatever intervention has been causing my transformation." Marcus almost laughed. "They want you to keep doing what you're doing." "They want me to keep changing." The elevator doors opened. "They just don't know that the intervention is a janitor who refused to be afraid of me." They walked to Victoria's office in silence. Inside, she collapsed into her chair like someone who had just finished running a marathon. "I need to tell you something," she said. Marcus sat in the chair across from her. "What?" "During the meeting when Richard was tearing into me when it felt like everything was falling apart, I almost quit. You just said you offered to resign. Not the job, the whole thing. The change, the vulnerability, all of it." Victoria's voice cracked slightly. "I could feel myself reaching for the armor, that cold, hard shell that's kept me safe for 12 years. It would have been so easy to put it back on, to become the ice queen they expected, to tear Richard apart instead of acknowledging he was right. But you didn't. I didn't, because I thought about you." Marcus went still. "I thought about everything you've taught me, about strength and vulnerability, about walls and doors, about the difference between surviving and living." Victoria met his eyes. "And I thought about Lily, my daughter. I thought about what kind of example I want to be. Not for the world, not for my company, but for the children who might grow up hearing stories about Victoria Sterling. Do I want them to learn that power comes from fear, that success requires cruelty, that the only way to protect yourself is to destroy everyone who might hurt you?" She shook her head. "I want them to learn that change is possible, that even the worst monsters can find their way back to humanity, that it's never too late to become someone better." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, something he hadn't felt since Denise. "You're not a monster, Victoria. I was. I was a monster for 12 years, and I hurt a lot of people because I was too afraid to be anything else." She stood and walked to the window. "But I don't have to be a monster anymore. You showed me that." "I didn't show you anything. You found it yourself." "I found it because you refused to let me stay lost." Victoria turned to face him. "You walked into my conference room and told me the truth when everyone else was too afraid to speak. You talked to me like a person when everyone else treated me like a force of nature. You believed I could change before I believed it myself. Anyone could have done that. But no one did. For 12 years no one did. Until you." They stood in silence for a long moment. The city hummed 40 floors below, millions of lives intersecting and diverging, each one carrying its own weight of joy and sorrow. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now the real work begins." Victoria returned to her desk and pulled up something on her computer. "I'm restructuring our management approach, implementing regular feedback systems, creating channels for employees to voice concerns without fear of retaliation." "That's a lot of change." "It's overdue change. I've spent 12 years building a culture of fear. It's going to take more than a few weeks to rebuild it into something healthy." "And the board is on board with this?" "The board is cautiously supportive, which is the best I could have hoped for, honestly." Victoria smiled slightly. "Margaret has agreed to be my accountability partner. She's going to meet with me monthly to review how things are going." "That's good." "It's necessary." Victoria leaned back in her chair. "I don't trust myself yet. I've been the old Victoria for too long to believe I won't slip back without help." Marcus stood. "I should get back to work." "Marcus, wait." He stopped. "Thank you. For everything. For being here today. For being here every day since you walked into that conference room." "You don't have to thank me. I want to." Victoria's voice was soft. "You saved my life. Not in a dramatic physical way, but in every way that matters. You reminded me that I was still human, that I could still choose to be different, that it wasn't too late." Marcus didn't know how to respond, so he just nodded once and walked toward the door. "Same time tonight," Victoria called after him. He smiled. "Same time tonight." The news spread through the building like wildfire. By 3 p.m., everyone knew that Victoria Sterling had called an emergency board meeting, offered to resign, and somehow emerged with her position intact. The details were murky. No one knew exactly what she had said or done, but the general consensus was that something significant had shifted. Marcus heard the gossip as he moved through his rounds. I heard she cried in front of the whole board. I heard she threatened to fire anyone who didn't support her new direction. I heard she's been seeing a therapist and this is all part of some recovery program. He didn't correct any of them. The truth was, Victoria's to share, not his. That evening, Robert Chen found him again. You were right. Marcus looked up from emptying a trash can. About what? About people changing. About her. Robert sat down on a nearby desk. She stopped by my office this afternoon. Apologized. For what? For the projector incident, the day you first spoke up. Robert shook his head in amazement. Victoria Sterling came to my office and apologized for humiliating me in front of the entire management team. Said she was wrong and she was sorry and she hoped I could forgive her. What did you say? I said I forgave her. What else was I supposed to say? The woman looked like she was about to collapse from the weight of everything she was carrying. Marcus tied off the trash bag. How do you feel? Confused. Relieved. A little bit hopeful. Robert stood. 3 weeks ago, I was counting down the days until I could find another job. Now I'm actually curious to see what this place becomes. That's good. It's terrifying. Robert laughed. But good. Definitely good. He walked away, leaving Marcus alone with his cart and his thoughts. The week that followed was unlike anything Sterling Tech had ever experienced. Victoria held a company-wide meeting and delivered a speech that left half the staff in tears. She acknowledged her past behavior. She apologized to everyone she had hurt. She laid out her vision for a different kind of company, one built on respect instead of fear, collaboration instead of competition, humanity instead of pure profit. Some employees were skeptical. Others were moved. A few started crying openly in the middle of the presentation. Marcus watched from the back of the room, invisible in his maintenance uniform, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. After the meeting, Maria from reception found him. You did this, didn't you? Marcus kept walking. I don't know what you mean. The changes, the apologies, the new Victoria. Maria fell into step beside him. Everyone's talking about it. They say she's been meeting with the janitor, the one who stood up to her in the conference room. People say a lot of things. Is it true? Marcus stopped walking. He looked at Maria, middle-aged, kind-faced, someone who had probably spent years making herself invisible to avoid Victoria's attention. What do you think? Maria studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled. I think maybe miracles are real after all. She walked away before he could respond. That night, Marcus met Victoria on the roof. She was sitting on the ledge, her legs dangling over 42 floors of empty air. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it looked like freedom. You're going to give security a heart attack, Marcus said, sitting down beside her. Security knows I come up here. They stopped worrying about it years ago. Do you usually sit this close to the edge? No. Usually I stand back there. Victoria gestured behind them. But tonight I wanted to feel something. The wind, the height, the reminder that life is fragile. Marcus looked out at the city. From up here, the lights looked like scattered diamonds, each one representing a life, a family, a story. How are you feeling? Exhausted, terrified, hopeful. Victoria laughed softly. All at once. Is that possible? That's exactly how growth feels. You keep saying things like that. Wise things that make me feel like maybe I'm not completely lost. You're not lost. You're just finding your way. Victoria turned to look at him. In the dim light from the city below, her face was softer than he'd ever seen it. Marcus, can I ask you something personal? You can ask. I might not answer. Fair enough. She paused, gathering courage. Do you ever think about finding love again? After Denise. The question hit him harder than he expected. He took a moment before answering. Sometimes. Late at night when Lily's asleep and the house is quiet. I think about what it would be like to have someone to share the silence with. But you haven't pursued it. I've been too busy surviving, too busy being a father, too busy putting one foot in front of the other. Marcus looked out at the city again. And part of me feels like it would be betraying her. Like moving on means admitting she's really gone. That's not true. I know. But knowing and feeling are different things. Victoria was quiet for a while. Then she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I've never been in love. Not really. I've had relationships, but they were always transactional, strategic. I chose partners who couldn't hurt me because I never let myself care enough for their absence to matter. That sounds lonely. It was practical. She paused. And yes, it was lonely. Do you think you could let yourself love someone now, after everything? Victoria turned to face him fully. I don't know. But for the first time in my life, I want to find out. Something hung in the air between them, unspoken, uncertain, the beginning of a possibility neither of them was ready to name. Marcus stood up. It's late, I should get home to Lily. Victoria stood too. Of course. I'll see you tomorrow. Same time as always. He started walking toward the roof access door. Behind him, Victoria's voice stopped him. Marcus? He turned. Whatever happens next, thank you for everything. Don't thank me yet. We're just getting started. He left her standing on the roof, silhouetted against the city lights, a billionaire who was finally learning what it meant to be human. The drive home was quiet. Marcus turned off the radio and let the silence wrap around him. He thought about Victoria's question, about love, about moving on, about the possibility of something new growing in the ruins of what he had lost. Denise had been gone for 3 years. In that time, he had become a ghost present, but not alive, functioning, but not living. The grief had hollowed him out and left behind just enough to take care of Lily, to show up for work, to exist without really being there. But something was changing. These past weeks with Victoria had awakened something he thought he'd buried with his wife. The capacity to connect, the desire to help, the recognition that he still had something to offer the world beyond emptying trash cans and mopping floors. Was it love? He didn't know. It was too early to name, too fragile to examine too closely. But it was something. And for the first time since Denise died, something felt like enough. At home, Lily was asleep in her bed, Mrs. Patterson reading in the living room. Long night. They're all long nights. Marcus sat down across from her. But good ones. How's your billionaire? She's not my billionaire. Sure she isn't. Mrs. Patterson smiled knowingly. Marcus Johnson, I've known you for 20 years. I know what that look on your face means. What look? The look of a man who's coming back to life. She reached over and patted his hand. Denise would be happy. She wouldn't want you to stay in the grave with her. Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes. I know. Then let yourself live again, whatever that looks like, whoever it's with. Mrs. Patterson stood. That little girl in there needs a father who's present, not just surviving. And you need to be more than just a ghost. She gathered her things and headed for the door. Mrs. Patterson. She turned. Thank you. For everything. For these 3 years of helping me hold it together. That's what neighbors are for, honey. She smiled. Now go to bed. Tomorrow's another day. The door closed behind her. Marcus sat in the quiet living room for a long time, thinking about ghosts and graves and the terrifying possibility of resurrection. Then he went to check on Lily. She was sleeping peacefully, her face soft in the nightlight's glow. On her nightstand sat a framed photo of Denise, the one Lily insisted on keeping close, even though the doctors said it might make the grief harder. Marcus picked up the photo and looked at his wife's face. I think I'm ready, he whispered. Not to forget you, never that, but to live again, To let someone in again. To stop being afraid. The photo didn't answer. Denise's smile stayed frozen permanent, a memory that would never fade, but also never grow. Marcus set it back down and kissed his daughter's forehead. "I love you, baby girl." "Love you too, Daddy," Lily murmured without waking. Marcus walked to his own bedroom and lay down in the dark. Tomorrow would come with its own challenges. Victoria's transformation was just beginning. The company would need time to heal. The board would need constant reassurance. And somewhere in all of that, two broken people were learning to trust again. But tonight, Marcus let himself feel something he hadn't felt in years. Hope, real hope. The kind that said maybe the worst was behind him. Maybe the future held something more than survival. Maybe love was possible again. He fell asleep with that hope wrapped around him like a blanket. And for the first time in 3 years, he didn't dream of death. He dreamed of light. 3 months had passed since the board meeting that changed everything. Marcus no longer counted the days. Somewhere along the way, time had stopped feeling like something to survive and started feeling like something to live. Sterling Tech was unrecognizable from the company he had walked into on that first day. The fear that once saturated every hallway had evaporated, replaced by something warmer. People laughed in break rooms. Conversations flowed freely in elevators. Employees actually looked forward to meetings instead of dreading them. And Victoria Sterling was at the center of it all. She still worked harder than anyone else in the building, still held people to high standards, still expected excellence. But the cruelty was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like compassion. Marcus watched her transformation with a mixture of pride and wonder. The woman who had once made grown men cry with a single glance now stopped to ask about their families. The CEO who had fired people for minor mistakes now created mentorship programs to help struggling employees improve. It wasn't perfect. Some days the old Victoria surfaced sharp words, cold looks, the instinct to control rather than connect. But those moments grew rarer as the weeks passed, and when they happened, Victoria caught herself. Apologized. Tried again. That was the difference. She kept trying. On a Thursday evening in late December, Marcus was cleaning the executive floor when Victoria appeared in the hallway. "I need to show you something." Marcus set down his mop. "What is it?" "Just come with me." She led him to the conference room where everything had started. The same glass walls, the same long table, the same projector screen that had caused so much chaos on that first day. But now the room was filled with people. Robert Chen was there, Maria from reception, the security guard whose daughter Maya was now 3 months old, the young administrative assistant who had made the report error that Victoria had forgiven. Dozens of employees Marcus had gotten to know over the past months, all gathered together, all looking at him with smiles on their faces. "What is this?" Victoria stepped to the front of the room. "This is a thank you." "For what?" "For everything." She gestured at the crowd. "Every person in this room has a story about how this company changed over the past 3 months, how their work environment improved, how they stopped dreading coming to the office, how they started feeling like they mattered." Robert stepped forward. "I was going to quit the week before you showed up, had my resignation letter written and everything. Now I'm leading a new department and actually excited about the future." Maria spoke next. "I spent 8 years being invisible. Now Ms. Sterling knows my name, my kids' names, what I do on weekends. I feel like a person again." One by one, employees shared their stories. Small moments of kindness, unexpected acts of recognition, the gradual thawing of a frozen workplace into something human. Marcus stood in the doorway, overwhelmed. "I didn't do any of this," he said. "You all did. Victoria did." Victoria didn't do it alone. The CEO moved through the crowd to stand in front of him. She did it because a janitor walked into a conference room and reminded her that people deserve to be treated like people. Because someone refused to be afraid when everyone else was terrified. Because one man had the courage to tell the truth. She reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you." Marcus opened it. Inside was a check for an amount that made his head spin. "What is this?" "It's a bonus. The same bonus I gave every executive this year because you've done more for this company than any executive ever has." "Victoria, I can't accept this." "You can, and you will." Her voice was firm but kind. "That money is going to help Lily. It's going to pay off your house. It's going to give you options you didn't have before. And you're going to take it because you earned it." Marcus looked at the check again, looked at the faces around him, looked at Victoria, who had somehow transformed from a monster into something resembling a friend. "Thank you," he said quietly. "All of you." The applause started slowly, then built until it filled the room. People were clapping, cheering, some of them wiping tears from their eyes. Marcus stood in the middle of it all, a janitor in a maintenance uniform surrounded by people who saw him not for his job, but for his humanity. It was the most seen he had felt since Denise died. After the celebration ended and the employees dispersed, Victoria found Marcus on the roof. He was standing at the edge looking out at the city, the envelope still clutched in his hand. "You're not going to jump, are you?" Marcus laughed. "No. Just thinking." "About what?" "About how different everything is from when I started here. How different I am." Victoria stood beside him. "Good different or bad different?" "Good. Definitely good." He turned to face her. "I came here looking for a job that would let me disappear. Something mindless that would fill the hours while I waited for life to start mattering again. And now I wake up actually wanting to see what the day brings. I look forward to conversations instead of dreading them. I feel like myself again for the first time in 3 years." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been hanging between them for weeks. "What happens now?" Marcus knew what she was really asking. The thing neither of them had been brave enough to name. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I think that's okay. I think not knowing is part of being alive." "That's very philosophical for a janitor." "I've had a good teacher." Victoria smiled. It was the full smile, the one that transformed her face completely. The one Marcus had seen more and more often as the weeks passed. "I want to meet her," Victoria said. "Lily, if that's okay." Marcus had been expecting this, dreading it and hoping for it in equal measure. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Victoria's voice was soft. "I know what she means to you. I know that introducing her to someone is a big step, but I want to know the person who taught you to be the man you are. Denise taught me that. Denise taught you how to love. Lily taught you how to keep going. There's a difference." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his daughter, about the years they had spent rebuilding their lives after loss, about the careful walls he had built around her, trying to protect her from more pain. But walls weren't always protection. Sometimes they were just prisons in disguise. "Saturday," he said finally. "Come for lunch on Saturday. I make pancakes." Victoria's face lit up. "Really? Really? But I'm warning you, Lily is going to ask you a million questions. She's curious about everything." "I can handle curious. Curious is good." "You say that now. Wait until she asks you why you used to be mean to people." Victoria's expression flickered. "What do you tell her about me?" "The truth. That you were scared and hurt, and you built walls to protect yourself. That you're learning to take them down. That people can change if they want it badly enough." And what does she think about that? She thinks everyone deserves a second chance. She got that from her mother. They stood together on the roof, two broken people who had somehow helped each other heal. The city spread out below them, millions of lights, representing millions of stories, each one carrying its own weight of joy and sorrow. "I'm scared," Victoria admitted quietly. Of what? Of meeting her. Of mattering to someone again. Of letting myself want something I might lose. Marcus reached over and took her hand. Not romantically. Just human connection. The same way she had taken his hand months ago in this same office on a night when everything felt impossible. Fear is part of it, he said. You don't get love without risk. You don't get connection without vulnerability. But the alternative is staying behind the walls forever, and we both know how that ends. Alone. Alone. Victoria squeezed his hand. Then I guess I'll see you Saturday. I guess you will. Saturday morning arrived with sunshine that felt like a gift. Marcus was up early cleaning the house with a thoroughness that made Lily suspicious. Why are you vacuuming twice? Because the house is dirty. The house is always dirty. You never vacuum twice. Marcus stopped pushing the vacuum and looked at his daughter. 8 years old, smart as a whip with her mother's eyes, and her mother's stubborn sense of justice. Someone's coming for lunch today. Who? A friend from work. Lily's eyes narrowed. What kind of friend? Just a friend. Someone I've been helping with some stuff. Is she pretty? Marcus nearly choked. What? Mrs. Patterson said you've been spending a lot of time with some lady at work. She said maybe you're finally moving on from being sad about Mama. Marcus set down the vacuum and sat on the couch, patting the spot beside him. Lily climbed up and snuggled against his side. Her name is Victoria. She was my boss, sort of. She was going through a hard time and I helped her figure some things out. Like what? Like how to be kind to people. How to stop being afraid all the time. How to let people in instead of pushing them away. Lily considered this. That sounds hard. It is hard, but she's been working really hard at it. And now she's coming to our house. Yes. To eat pancakes. Yes. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question Marcus had been dreading. Do you like her? Like her? Marcus took a deep breath. I don't know yet, baby. It's complicated. But I think she might become an important person in our lives, and I wanted you to meet her. Does she know about Mama? Yes. She knows everything. Is she going to try to replace Mama? Marcus pulled his daughter closer. No one could ever replace Mama. She was one of a kind, and we're going to love her forever. But that doesn't mean we can't have new people in our lives too. Having new people doesn't mean we love Mama any less. Lily thought about this for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, I'll meet her. But if she's mean, I'm going to tell her to leave. Marcus laughed. Fair enough. Victoria arrived at noon carrying flowers and looking more nervous than Marcus had ever seen her. For you, she said, handing the bouquet to Marcus. And this is for Lily. She pulled a small wrapped package from her bag. Lily appeared in the hallway studying the stranger with careful eyes. Hi, I'm Victoria. I know who you are. Daddy told me about you. Good things, I hope. He said you used to be mean, but you're trying to be better. Victoria flinched, but recovered quickly. That's accurate. I was mean for a long time. Your father helped me see that I didn't have to be. Why were you mean? Because I was scared and hurt, and I thought if I was tough enough, no one could hurt me again. That's dumb. Lily, Marcus warned. No, she's right. Victoria crouched down to Lily's level. It was dumb. Being mean didn't protect me from anything. It just made me lonely. Lily studied her for a long moment. Then she pointed at the package in Victoria's hand. Is that for me? Yes, but you don't have to accept it if you don't want to. Lily took the package and unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a book, a beautiful illustrated copy of fairy tales, the kind with gilded edges and ribbon bookmarks. My father gave me a copy of this book when I was your age, Victoria said. It was one of the only things I kept from my childhood. I thought you might like it. Lily's eyes widened. This is yours. It was. Now it's yours if you want it. For a moment, Marcus thought Lily might refuse. She was protective of her memories of Denise, suspicious of anyone who might try to take her mother's place. But then, she hugged the book to her chest. "Thank you. I'll take good care of it." Victoria's face softened. "I know you will." Lunch was awkward at first. Victoria didn't know how to talk to children. She was too formal, too careful, treating Lily like a small adult instead of an 8-year-old who wanted to know if billionaires had pet unicorns. But Lily was relentless, peppering Victoria with questions that ranged from curious to invasive. "How much money do you have?" "A lot." "Like $1 million?" "More than that." "Do you have a private jet?" "Yes, but I hardly ever use it." "Do you have a boyfriend?" Victoria glanced at Marcus. "No, not at the moment." "Do you want one?" "Lily," Marcus said firmly, "eat your pancakes." But Victoria was smiling. "It's okay. She's just curious." She turned back to Lily. "I think I might want one someday. I'm still figuring it out. Daddy's figuring it out too. He's been sad for a long time because Mama died." The table went quiet. Victoria looked at Marcus, then back at Lily. "I'm very sorry about your mama. Marcus told me about her. She sounds like she was an amazing person." "She was the best." Lily's voice was matter-of-fact, the way children discuss death when they've lived with it long enough. "She made the best pancakes, even better than Daddy's." "I don't doubt it. Daddy tries really hard, though. He learned from her." "That's what love does," Victoria said softly. "It teaches us things that stay with us forever." Lily considered this. Then she nodded and went back to her pancakes. The rest of the meal passed more easily. Victoria relaxed, Lily warmed up, and by the time they finished eating, the awkwardness had melted into something almost comfortable. After lunch, Lily went to her room to look at her new book, leaving Marcus and Victoria alone in the kitchen. "She's amazing," Victoria said. "Smart, direct, completely unafraid to say what she thinks. She gets that from her mother. I think she gets it from both her parents." They washed dishes side by side, not talking, not needing to. The domesticity of it felt strange and familiar at once. Strange because Victoria Sterling washing dishes in his tiny kitchen was surreal familiar because he had done this same task with Denise hundreds of times. "I keep expecting to wake up," Victoria said quietly. "What do you mean, this, all of it, the past 3 months? You, Lily. This little house that feels more like home than any penthouse I've ever owned." She set down the dish she was drying. "I keep expecting to wake up and discover it was all a dream. That I'm still the same cold, lonely person I was before you walked into that conference room." Marcus turned to face her. "It's not a dream. You did the work. You changed. Because of you. Because of yourself. I just asked questions. You found the answers." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the thing they had both been circling around for weeks. "What are we, Marcus?" He didn't pretend to misunderstand. "I don't know. Friends, definitely. Maybe something more. I'm not sure yet." "Are you scared? Terrified?" "Of what?" "Of losing someone again. Of letting someone into my life, and Lily's life, and then having them leave." He took a breath. "Of dishonoring what I had with Denise by moving on." "Is that what it feels like, dishonoring her?" Marcus thought about it carefully. "No, not anymore. Denise wouldn't want me to spend the rest of my life alone. She would want me to be happy, to let myself love again. But it's hard to let go of the guilt. Hard to accept that I deserve happiness when she's not here to share it." Victoria reached over and took his hand. "You do deserve it. You're the best person I've ever known, Marcus Johnson. The kindest, the bravest, the most genuinely good. If anyone deserves happiness, it's you. You too." "I'm not sure about that." "I am." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You've done the hardest thing there is. You've looked at who you were, and decided to become someone different. That takes more courage than anything I've ever done. They stood in his small kitchen, holding hands, two people who had found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. "I want to try," Victoria said. "Whatever this is, I want to see where it goes. But I need you to know that I'm not good at this. I've never done relationships that weren't transactional. I don't know how to be vulnerable without falling apart. Then we'll learn together. One day at a time." "What about Lily?" "Lily makes her own judgments. If she decides she likes you, she'll let you know. If she doesn't, she'll let you know that too." Victoria laughed. "She's already asked me 3 times if I'm going to be her new mom." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I didn't know yet, but I hoped we could be friends first and see what happens." That was the right answer. It was honest. That's all I know how to be anymore. The months that followed were a slow unfolding. Victoria came to Saturday pancake breakfasts. Marcus attended company events as something more than the janitor who had changed everything. Lily gradually warmed to Victoria, moving from suspicious tolerance to cautious acceptance to something that looked almost like affection. There were setbacks. Victoria had hard days when the old patterns crept back and she lashed out before catching herself. Marcus had moments when the grief surged and he pulled away, unable to be present, even for the people who needed him. Lily had a meltdown one evening, crying that she didn't want a new mom because it meant Mama was really gone. But they worked through it. Together. The way families do. Because that's what they were becoming. A family. Unconventional and imperfect, and built on the ruins of losses that would never fully heal. But a family nonetheless. On a spring evening, exactly 1 year after Marcus had walked into that conference room and changed everything, Victoria took him back to the roof of Sterling Tech. The city spread out below them, the same view they had shared so many times before. But something felt different tonight. Charged. "I have something for you," Victoria said. She handed him a folder. Marcus opened it. Inside were legal documents dense with jargon he didn't fully understand. But one phrase jumped out at him. Co-owner. "I'm restructuring the company, creating a board of stakeholders that includes employees at every level, and I want you to be part of it." "Victoria, I'm a janitor. You're the man who saved this company, not with money or strategy, but with humanity." She moved closer. "I don't want to run Sterling Tech alone anymore. I want to build something different, something that treats people the way you've taught me to treat them. And I want you beside me while I do it." "I don't know anything about running a company. You know about people. That's more important than anything else." Marcus looked at the documents, then at Victoria. "This is too much. It's not enough." Her voice was fierce. "You walked into my life when I was at my lowest, and you refused to let me stay there. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You showed me what it looks like to be brave and kind and fully human. This," she gestured at the folder, "this is nothing compared to what you've given me." Marcus didn't know what to say, so he said the only thing that felt true. "I love you." The words came out before he could stop them, before he could second-guess or qualify or retreat into the safety of friendship. Victoria's breath caught. "What? I love you." I don't know when it happened exactly. Somewhere between the conference room and the roof and the pancake breakfasts. But I love you, Victoria. Not because of what you've become, but because of who you are underneath all of it. The scared little girl who built an empire to feel safe. The woman brave enough to tear it down when she realized it was a prison. All of you. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to do this. I've never loved anyone before. Not really. Neither have I. Not since Denise." Marcus took her hands. "But I want to learn. With you. If you'll let me." "What about Lily?" "Lily asked me last week if you were going to marry us." Victoria laughed through her tears. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I didn't know, but that I hoped someday, if we were lucky, we might become a real family." "And what did she say?" She said she hoped so too. Because you make really good hot chocolate and you never treat her like a baby. Victoria was crying now. Full honest tears that she didn't try to hide. I'm going to mess this up, she said. I'm going to fall back into old patterns and push you away and say things I don't mean. Probably. And you're going to have days when you're lost in grief and can't be present for anyone. Definitely. So how do we make this work? Marcus pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her the way he used to hold Denise on hard nights. We show up anyway. We try again after we fail. We forgive each other and ourselves. We remember that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Victoria buried her face in his chest. I love you too. I think I have for a while. I was just too scared to admit it. I know. I was scared too. Are you still scared? Yes. But I'm done letting fear run my life. I spent 3 years hiding from the world because I was afraid of getting hurt again. I'm not doing that anymore. They stood together on the roof, holding each other, two people who had found light in the darkest places. Below them, the city hummed with life. Millions of people carrying their own burdens, fighting their own battles, searching for their own moments of connection. And 42 floors above it all, a janitor and a billionaire chose each other. The wedding was small. Just family and close friends gathered in Mrs. Patterson's backyard on a perfect autumn afternoon. Lily was the flower girl, scattering petals with more enthusiasm than precision. Robert Chen served as one of the groomsmen, still marveling at the journey that had brought them all here. Maria from reception cried through the entire ceremony. Victoria wore a simple white dress, nothing like the armor she used to wrap herself in. Marcus wore a suit he'd bought with the bonus she'd given him, the first nice suit he'd owned in years. When they exchanged vows, they wrote their own. I was lost, Victoria said, her voice steady but thick with emotion. I had built a life that looked successful from the outside, but was hollow at the core. Then you walked into my conference room and refused to be afraid. You saw through all my walls and found the person hiding behind them. You believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. You loved her back to life. Marcus took her hands. I was a ghost, going through the motions, surviving instead of living. Then I met a woman who everyone feared, and I saw that she was just as broken as me. Helping you find your way back helped me find mine. You gave me a reason to be present again. You gave Lily a family again. You gave both of us hope. When they kissed, the small crowd cheered. But the moment Marcus would remember most came later at the reception, when Lily climbed into Victoria's lap and whispered something in her ear. Victoria's face crumpled with emotion. She hugged Lily tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Marcus walked over. What did she say? Victoria could barely speak. She asked if she could call me Mom. Marcus looked at his daughter, his wife, the family they had somehow built from the ruins of their separate losses. What did you tell her? Victoria wiped her eyes and smiled, the fullest, truest smile he had ever seen. I told her yes. 5 years later, Marcus stood at the window of their new house, watching Victoria chase their 4-year-old son across the backyard, while Lily, now 13, pretended to be too cool to join in, but was clearly fighting a smile. Sterling Tech had transformed completely under their shared leadership. The company that once ran on fear now ran on trust. Employee satisfaction was at an all-time high. Profits had actually increased since they stopped treating people like disposable resources. Victoria still had hard days. Marcus still had moments when the grief surfaced unexpectedly. They still fought, sometimes still struggled, still had to work at their marriage like any couple does. But they did it together. And that made all the difference. Mrs. Patterson had passed away 2 years ago, but her legacy lived on in the community center Marcus and Victoria had built in her name. A place where single parents could find support, where grieving families could find comfort, where lost people could find their way back. Denise's photo still sat on Lily's nightstand. Her memory was woven into the fabric of their family, present in traditions and stories and the values they tried to live by. She would never be forgotten. But she was no longer the only thing Marcus held on to. He had learned finally that love wasn't finite, that opening his heart to new people didn't mean closing it to the ones he'd lost, that the best way to honor Denise was to live fully, love deeply, and pass on the lessons she had taught him. Victoria appeared at the back door breathless and laughing, their son wrapped around her leg. "You're just going to stand there watching? I'm enjoying the view. Get out here and help me, Johnson. Your son is a menace." "Your son too, Sterling. Don't remind me. He gets the stubbornness from your side." Marcus laughed and walked out into the backyard, scooping up his son and tossing him over his shoulder to delighted shrieks. Lily rolled her eyes at all of them, but she was smiling. And Marcus Johnson, the janitor who had once walked into a conference room and refused to be afraid, looked at his family and knew that he had finally found his way home. Some people believed that love was a feeling that happened to you, but Marcus knew the truth. Love was a choice. A daily decision to show up, to try again, to keep your heart open, even when it was easier to build walls. He had made that choice in a conference room 5 years ago when he spoke up for a stranger being torn apart. Victoria had made it on a rooftop when she admitted she was scared and asked for help. They had made it together every day since, through grief and growth and the beautiful mess of building a life from scratch. Fear had nearly destroyed them both, but courage, the quiet kind, the daily kind, the kind that shows up even when you're terrified, had saved them. And love, the fierce and fragile miracle of it, had made them whole. Marcus pulled his family close, feeling their warmth against him, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. This was his life now. Not the one he had planned, not the one he had expected, but the one he had chosen. And it was more than enough. It was everything.